Welcome to week 7. One more week after this and you have completed the course, but before we get to the end, I think it's important as we look at week 7, we will end the Bowman and Deal book. I trust that it's been a good read for you as you've worked through the chapters and through the frames that Bowman and Deal have presented. I think it's complete now as we understand the 4 frames and how they interact, and how the skilled individual will understand all of the frames and to look at your organization through all the lenses that Bowman and Deal have provided for you. I think as you begin to find situations and complex problems that you need to solve as an administrator or as a student, as a leader within these contexts, that you're able to put on different sets of lenses and understand the problems and the situations from different angles. And if we put on all the lenses and understand it from all angles, we're more likely to be able to solve those problems and situations to help us to move as administrators, and a skilled administrator can get what needs to be done and move the organization forward. The articles that we're going to be reading are for week 7, actually framed out as some innovations within higher ed. If you've been in higher ed for very long, you know this is a difficult concept. You'd also understand that the context in which we're working in right now, there are external constituents that are clamoring for change within the educational system. And as a result of that, innovation is kind of the buzzword for today. How does higher ed innovate? How does higher ed do things different that are time-honored, that if this is the way we've done them for hundreds of years, and yet the society suggests that these disruptive innovations be applied to the higher ed venue. And so the skill administrator is going to understand innovation. The skill administrator is going to say, how do we apply innovation? I think the biggest mistake that I've seen over time is when innovations come, the higher ed context, into the higher ed context, it's immediately adopted and tried in the walls of higher ed, and it fails miserably. Because what ends up happening is there's no adaptation. And so what works outside of the academy and what works on the inside of the academy are often different. And so what is important for an administrator to understand is that every context is different. And in order for the organization to move forward in and through innovation, it needs to have a translator that can take that innovation, rework it inside your context, and to translate that work into a more successful, more efficient, more effective organization. And whether you're trying to get efficiencies, whether you're trying to establish an effectiveness, the innovations need to be translated. That's important, that you have an insider within the organization that understands the culture, understands the structure, understands the political nature within the organization, and also understands the innovation and how those two interact. I think private higher ed is no different than any other sector in higher ed, that we need to have innovations, but we need to have innovations that are going to move the organization forward. It's the margins in the private sector are typically pretty thin. And as we begin to understand the innovations, we have to be making wise decisions as we try to move forward. Because if we don't have the margins in order to try innovation after innovation after innovation that don't bring results and change. So, as you look through the literature today, I trust that you're able to understand innovation, understand it within the context of how we're working in higher ed in the private sector, and try to interact with it in a way that can help you be more efficient and more effective.